Welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. What's going on? I hope you guys are doing great today. I know my day's going just fine. Yeah, the day started really well today, man. You know what I mean? Had a beautiful time over at the Dharma Center today with the meditation this morning. I mean, it was, and then the basic Buddhism study that we do. It was great. Just great to be in that energy, you know what I mean? And so I want to just kind of continue. I want to continue that energy on the video, man. So thank you for welcoming. I mean, let me welcome you back. You know what I mean, to another episode, man. Thank you for tuning in. You know, greatly appreciate it, man. Thank you for your donation of that. You know what I mean? I really appreciate that. But without any further ado, I'm gonna just ring us in, you know, and we'll get to the topic. All right, so here we go. Whew. Nam myo renge kyo, nam myo renge kyo, nam myo renge kyo. Eternal Guru Shakyamuni, please God, allow the energies to transform. Allow the energies to transform, to reach the places that it needs to reach the ears that need to hear it, to reach the hearts that need to feel it. These energies ground us to something that's rooted in a positive sense, in a spiritual sense, in a recovery sense. Thank you. Alrighty, well, let's get started, man. Now that we got the tone, you know, I always I said that I wanted to start ringing us in to get the tone right, to get the feel of the message, so that it really takes effect, so that cause and effect can really happen, right? So, you know, without further ado, let's get into it, man. So check this out. Yeah, I was going back and forth on a few subjects that I wanted to I didn't know really which one or what I was going to talk about. Like most of the videos that I do, I really don't know until right at the time of the video. You know what I mean? And it's just in that little bit of meditative moment. Or if something just really itched at me, or just, you know, lit something up in my mind or whatever. And that's what's happening here today. And this was supposed to happen on Thursday. And I actually did the video on Thursday, a video for this particular subject. And as I went through the whole thing, I come to find out that my battery was so low that half of the video didn't take. So I was just like, oh my God. And then I was so tired. And I just said, you know what? I'll wait and do it on another day, which is today. You know what I mean? So that's what we're going to do. And without further ado, let me just get my notes out here. And because, you know, I've been doing a lot of the notes lately in the videos, because there's a lot of things that I want to talk about, part of whatever subject that I do, that if I don't jot a little this or a little that down or whatever, then I'll forget it. You know what I mean? And then it won't come to me until after I'm done with the video, and I'm like, oh, I should have said this, or I should have put this in there, or whatever, right? But so it helps me stay focused, stay on track, to relay the message that I really want to get out there. And today's message is a message. It's something that I heard in the audio book that I was listening to from the great philosopher, Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna. And Nagarjuna is known for his philosophy in Buddhism, really focusing on the emptiness and the self. You know what I mean? And in the Atman, which is the self in Sanskrit, right? And so he's really focusing on that and the phenomena that everything is empty in a sense. You know what I mean? It's a big rabbit hole that you can get into. Nagarjuna's I like his teachings, and the book that I was listening to, excuse me, oh my gosh, the book that I was listening to was Nagarjuna's book that's titled Prajnadhana, I think is what it is. That's how you say it. And so it was a book of over 200 metaphors. He's really big on these metaphor things. And I love metaphors because metaphors activate that thing in you to search, to look, to move forward, it brings out the karma yoga in you. You know what I'm saying? That the yoga of action, right? And that's what I like about Nagarjuna's stuff, is that it really lights that fire in you in a sense that you want to know. Oh, excuse me. I just haven't gotten enough sleep. Sorry about that. But anyway, it makes you want to know more of, or what it is that, what kind of message is it that he's trying to get out of these few little lines. And I love that about his metaphors, is that they're short parables, short riddles that make you activate that part of the brain that activates that, so that you lift the cap off of your mental thought process, because you want to feed more into it because of these things. And so the metaphor that I'm talking about, let me get my glasses on here, is a really super cool one. I don't it's not very long, so but it's really cool, I thought. So that's what I want to share with you guys. You know, and the heart of Nagarjuna's metaphor here is really simple if you really listen to it, and you're going to find out here in just a second. And it's sharp though, but humbling at the same time. You know what I mean? It really brings you this sense of compassion and mindfulness at the same time, I think. And you know, the metaphor goes like this. It says, a river's water is fresh, full of minerals, and drinkable. But once it enters the ocean, it becomes salty and no longer drinkable. You know, in a Mahayana thought, this image is not about rivers or oceans at all. You know what I mean? It's about mind practice. It's about the subtle ways purity of a thought process becomes obscured. You know what I mean? And you know, the river in this metaphor is the river is the mind. And in Buddhism, the mind is originally enlightened, it's clear, it's capable of awakening, right? This is the fresh water. That's the metaphor there. You know what I mean? The Buddha nature in you, that wholesomeness of you, that's what the clear, rich, full of mineral water that's drinkable is representing here, the mind. And even when the mind is struggling, even when we're struggling, or you have a relapse, or you feel lost, or the clarity is distorted, or whatever it is that you're going through that's distorting that, beneath all of that, that wholesomeness of you is still there. The clarity of the river is still there. You know what I mean? Now, when the river flows into the ocean, it mixes with the salt of the water, of the ocean, which represents, in the metaphor, that salt represents the craving, it represents the fears, it represents opinions, it represents trauma, it represents those habitual patterns, it represents the social conditioning that keeps you in these cyclical samsara ways of living and thinking, right? And it's that ego identity. That's the saltiness. You know what I mean? Now, let me move my notes here. Before I lose my spot. Now, the mind becomes less drinkable, not because it's bad, but because it's mixed with layers of conditioning, because it's mixed with those layers of saltiness, right? Now, Nagarjuna's point here is that he is pointing out to dependent origination and emptiness, is what I believe it's happening here. Now, in other words, nothing is inertly pure or impure. And purity depends on conditions. You know, when wholesome conditions are present, the mind is clear. When unwholesome conditions dominate, the mind becomes cloudy, right? Now, the river didn't lose its purity. It simply encountered new conditions. This is a profoundly compassionate way of thinking or teaching, right? And those conditions that happen are not permanent. You know what I mean? That's the good thing, right? Now, this is a God, come on. Now this is it's not permanent, right? So purity is not a permanent state. You know what I mean? You don't fail when your mind becomes cloudy. You don't lose your spirituality when you feel overwhelmed. You're simply a river entering an ocean of conditions. You know what I mean? Now, this removes shame and replaces it with understanding. You know, practicing is about returning to the source. You know what I mean? Now, in other words, it's returning to the river. You know what I mean? Despite all the saltiness that's happening in your life, despite all those things that arise in your life that is the ocean, you realize that practice is about returning back home, back to the wholesomeness of you, which is that river. You know what I mean? And, meditation, chanting, prayer, doing service work, these are ways of returning to the river. You know what I mean? Reconnecting with clarity, remembering the original nature of you. You don't purify the ocean, you return to the spring. You return to the river. You'll never purify the ocean. You know what I'm saying? So what do? You go back and take a dip in the river. You know what I'm saying? Now, the thing is that you don't need to fight the ocean. And a lot of us do that in our lives. You know what I'm saying? I know I did that for many, many years in my own personal recovery and spirituality journey. You know what I mean? And Buddhism is not about resisting the world. It's about seeing through it. It's about involving yourself with the things that are confronting you in that moment. You know what I mean? Now, when you understand that the saltiness is not your true nature, you stop identifying with it. This is called liberation, I believe. This is called cleansing yourself. Cleansing that karmic energy that you're grabbing. Because karmic energy can be both wholesome and unwholesome. You know what I'm saying? And when you're swimming in this ocean of salty conditions, the only way to get purified and cleaned of that is by returning to the fresh, pure water. You know what I mean? I know many of you probably been to the ocean before. You know, every time you get out of the ocean, you're swimming at the beach or whatever, and they always have the freshwater showers. You know what I mean? Every time you get under that water, you feel just totally different after you get out of there. You know what I mean? Because when you get out of the ocean, you feel like this almost sense of filthiness in a sense. Like you feel this film and it just doesn't feel right. Once you get under that fresh, pure water, you feel like a totally different person. You know what I mean? That's the river. That's returning to the river. That's returning to the wholesomeness of you, to clear that to purify your karmic energy. You know what I mean? To clear that mental thought process of you that keeps you in that salty ocean. You know what I mean? Now, in a way, if you look at it in a recovery lens, your work in recovery is already aligned with this metaphor. Now, and I believe here's how it becomes a living practice, if you will. You know, your core is still pure. You know what I mean? Even though you're in this state of empty, or the state of unworthiness, or whatever you're feeling in that state of addiction, or in that trauma, or in that depression, or in that grief, whatever it is, right? That whatever's salting your wound, you know what I mean? Now, addiction and trauma, shame, the survival part of you are all the salt. All of that stuff, all of that suffering is the salt, not the river. Now, your Buddha nature, that wholesomeness of you, your clarity, your compassion, your dignity was never destroyed. It was only mixed with the conditions. You know what I'm saying? So when you mix that, you get this film. You know what I mean? You get this film on your glasses. It's hard to see through that. You can still see, but until you get the clarity, things start happening. You know what I mean? Now, this kind of reframes recovery from fixing what's broken to uncovering what's always been whole, right? Now, you learn to recognize when you're entering the ocean through the practice. Now, in recovery, this means noticing triggers, old patterns, emotions, storm of emotions, environments that pull you off that middle path. You know what I'm saying? Now, not with judgment, but with awareness. The river is entering the ocean again. This gives you choice. You know what I mean? Because when you're practicing and understanding on a daily basis, you start noticing what part's the river, what part of your life is the river, and what part of it is the ocean, the salty ocean, right? Now you create conditions that support the purified water, that pure water of the river. Now recovery is not willpower, it's conditions. You know what I mean? Meditation, community. You know what I mean? Therapy, service work, boundaries, spiritual practice, even rest and honesty. These are the things that keep your water pure and clear. You know what I'm saying? That's that when you do those type of things on a daily basis, this is really good. This is real 12 steps programish type stuff too. You know what I mean? It meets right there because it's all about that consistency of doing things on the daily basis. You know what I mean? Now, it's like the river is that thing that is in constant flow. You know what I'm saying? The river never is the river. The river constantly changes, just like you and I. Just like the thought processes that you have every day. Just like the feelings, just like the addictions, they change every single day. It's a little stronger one day, it's a little less the next day. Sometimes you don't even think about it. Sometimes you got a good day. And sometimes, gosh, man, it's struggling. You know what I mean? But if you ever watch a river flow, perhaps there's a storm and there's all this debris. And it looks like things are getting piled up on the surface of the river. But the river's a river. It keeps flowing. Under all that clutter, eventually, everything's of impermanence. Eventually, it flows along. You know what I mean? And again, it enters the ocean, the salty ocean. And that's the way we live. You know what I'm saying? Because once you purify yourself in the river for a minute and you get out, as soon as you get out, something else is coming that's salty. That's it's like putting salt on a wound. You're not going to know what it feels like to be liberated, to what it feels like to feel that enlightened state, that sense of wholesomeness, unless you felt the burning of the salt. You know what I'm saying? Unless you felt the discomfort of the salt, are you going to appreciate the purified cleanliness of the river? You know what I mean? And the more you do it, the more you do those types of things that purify, that keep you in the river, the easier it becomes for you to stay on the bank of the river and not let yourself flow to the salt. You know what I'm saying? And let me see what else I got down here. Now, let me get back to this part here that in Buddhism, again, like I was saying, the river represents the mind in its natural state. In other words, that's where your mind is luminous, it's clear, it's capable of compassion, capable of wisdom, it's capable of awakening. Now, this is what the Buddha meant when he said that the mind is luminous, but obscured by passing defilements. This is what the Mahayana tradition calls Buddha nature, right? The inert capacity for awakening that every being carries. All of us carry that Buddha-ness, that Buddha nature, that wholesome sense of wanting to be a good person, wanting to always love and show compassion and mindfulness. We all have that. But for a lot of us, because we're in this ocean of salt, that it brings distorted thinking. It brings pain. It brings discomfort. It brings irritation. It brings, all the things that suffering brings. You know what I mean? Now, your river has always been pure, even when life didn't feel pure, even when you didn't feel pure. Your trauma didn't destroy your river. Your addiction didn't destroy your river. Your mistakes didn't destroy your river. Your shame didn't destroy your river. The river is your original wholesomeness, your original dignity, the part of you that kept going, the part of you that knew, even in the darkest moments, that something better was possible. When Nagarjuna talked about the river, he's talking about the part of you that was never broken. Let that sink in for a second there. You were never broken. You were only covered up by the salt. Now, the ocean when the river flows into the ocean, the water mixes with the salt and it becomes undrinkable. Not because the river failed, but because the conditions change, right? And like we said earlier, that represents the trauma, that represents the craving, the fear, the ego, the conditioning, the patterns, the habitual patterns, the stories that others tell about us, or the wounds that the wounds that we never asked for. You know what I mean? Those things that just happen to us. You know what I mean? And we cling to that feeling. We get delusional about that, thinking that, oh, we're not worthy, or I could never do better, or they always said I wasn't going to amount to nothing, or you know, this just can't happen to me, or that I've never been good at that, or that all of those things. You know what I'm saying? That we kind of gaslight ourselves about. And you know, I like the fact that Nagarjuna talks about the river didn't lose its purity. It simply encountered new conditions. Because how many times have we gone through stuff and we just stay there? It's like, man, I can never get ahead. But why is this always happening to me? It's because we're staying in that ocean. You know what I mean? We're staying in the ocean, allowing the salt to dictate what we do. You know what I mean? When that salt is distorting my thinking, and I'm like, the only way for me to get away from that thinking is I'm going to go use. Because that's all I've known. Because that was the cap. That was my capacity. You know what I mean? Until I learned about the flow of the river, did things start happening. You know, when you grew up in the chaos, your mind adapted. That's exactly what happened to me. And when you lived through trauma, your nervous system adapted. When you survived addiction, your behaviors adapted. You know, you didn't become salty because you were bad. You became salty because you were human. And Nagarjuna here is saying that don't confuse the salt with the river. Don't confuse the conditions with your identity. Now, let's kind of look at this a different way. Let's slow down here, and because this is where so many of us get stuck, I believe. I know that personally, that kind of happened. You know what I mean? Now, because we start to believe that the salt is who we are. You know what I mean? We start to believe that I'm broken, I'm damaged, I'm too far gone, I'm not spiritual enough, I'm not disciplined enough, I'm not worthy of healing, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of recovery. But these are ocean thoughts. These are salt thoughts. These are conditioned thoughts. These are the thoughts of not practicing. These are thoughts of not being teachable. These are thoughts of staying in that cyclical world of samsara. Now, they are not the river. And when we don't understand this metaphor, we start fighting the ocean. And if you ever been in the ocean is strong. And when you're in the ocean, you can't fight the ocean. The ocean's too strong. The ocean sucks you into the ocean. You know what I mean? And it's a battle that you won't win, that's for sure. Now, when we understand that, we try to purify the salt. We try to fix ourselves. We at the level of the symptoms. You know what I'm saying? We try to shame ourselves into clarity. But you can't purify the ocean by fighting, by yelling, by trying to be an ocean yourself. You can't purify the ocean by those types of things. You can't purify the ocean by pretending the salt isn't there. And that's what a lot of us do. We pretend that the suffering's not there. And for a lot of it, that's how we live till the next day. I pretend that I'm not suffering, so I'm just going to get high some more. Pretend that I'm not suffering, so I'm just going to sleep more. I'm going to pretend that I don't feel like this, so I'm just going to eat more. I'm going to pretend that I'm doing this, so I'm going to go, do another hit. Drink another drink. You know what I'm saying? Be mad at somebody again today. Abuse somebody again today. That's that type of mentality. You know what I'm saying? Now, returning to the river, this is how we reconnect with the clarity that's always been there. You know what I mean? In Buddhism, the answer is, in Buddhism, the answer is really simple. And we change the conditions. That's one of the things that you got to understand. Changing the conditions, not through force, not through punishment, not through shame, not through perfectionism, but through practice. Through the consistency of meditation, chanting, prayer, through the community, the Sangha, setting boundaries, getting rest, feeling compassion, showing compassion, doing service work, alleviating the suffering of someone else. It's such a rewarding feeling to, there in turn, alleviate yours. You know what I mean? Slowing down through and remembering. Uploading that mindset that activates that introspective awareness of you. When you do that, when you activate the introspective awareness of you by entering back into the river, by doing all these types of things that are the river, that flow. Because it says in one of the chapters in the Lotus Sutra, the water, no matter where it comes from, whatever the water touches, it purifies. And the river is the mind. The practice is the water that's purifying the mind. You know what I'm saying? Now, the more that you practice, the more it's going to cleanse you. The more it's going to change the thought processes that you got. The more it's going to change the reaction that you have to the saltiness. You know what I'm saying? Now, it's, every spiritual practice is a tributary that brings you back to the fresh water, no matter what it is. You know what I mean? I love this because this is where where Buddhist philosophy fits really well with, it integrates really well with any spiritual practice. You know what I'm saying? And I don't care what spiritual practice it is that you practice, anything, they all want the same thing. They all want to be and feel that wholesomeness, that good. They're trying to bring that out of you. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to purify that mental thought process so that they feel like that, then turn there so that they live like that, so that they spread that out. You know what I mean? Now, every moment of awareness is a drop of clarity returning to the river. Every time you pause before reacting, you return to the river. Every time you breathe through the craving, you return to the river. Every time you forgive yourself, you return to the river. Every time you say, I'm still learning, you return to the river. Every time you allow yourself to be teachable, you return to the river. Every time you recitate or you recite sutra, you return to the river. Anytime you even get together with a group of people, like I was earlier with a group of people and we were just chatting about the spiritual process, about life, you're returning to the river doing that. You know what I mean? And then you figure out that, wow, the river's always been there. All you had to do was turn toward it. You're too busy thinking about this ocean that's so vast, you can't see the end of it. And that's what the cyclical world of samsara does to you. It makes you think that, wow, there's no end to this suffering. How could I ever have a good day if all there is suffering? It's through the consistency, through the practice. Now, in recovery, it's not about becoming someone new. In recovery it's about remembering who you were before the salt. Because if you are in recovery of anything, myself, drugs, before the drugs, there was a part that was the river. Before your drinking, before your grief, before your depression, before whatever trauma it is that you're going through, there was a wholesome part of you. You know what I mean? Now, it's about uncovering, not replacing. It's about returning, not reinventing. It's about rediscovering, not performing. Now, when you understand Nagarjuna's metaphor, recovery becomes less about fixing and controlling and suppressing and punishing and forcing, and more about understanding, more about compassion, more about awareness, more about conditions, more about returning. Now you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start asking, what conditions am I swimming in? You stop saying I failed and you start saying I got pulled into the ocean. You stop saying I'm weak and you start saying I'm learning to swim differently. You stop saying I'm broken. You start saying my river is still pure. This is the shift that changes everything. This is the cause and effect. This is the independent origination. You know what I mean? And when you do those things, that even if it's just a little glimpse of remembering the river, that's all it takes, is just a little bit to snowball into something enormous, right? Now, it's the metaphor there about the river and the ocean is, I think it if you look at it deeply, I think that it really is about the right view. You know what I mean? It's about the introspective awareness. It's about the thought process that you have. And we've been living a life of whatever it is that you live, right? And it's just these piles of layers of salt, man. Because you're in this ocean that's just killing you, man. You know what I mean? And until you have a consistency of wholesomeness, a consistency of meditation, a consistency of chanting, a consistency of prayer, a consistency of right view, a consistency of one day at a time, a consistency of service work, a consistency of saying, just for today, I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? It snowballs effect into this beautiful river, man. When you dive into there and then you get out, you feel this cleanliness of you, purified. That when you're looking down at the river, you could just see everything in there, clear. You know what I mean? Beautiful stuff. Now, I want to just take a moment here for a minute, just to kind of, just to feel the river. If you please just indulge me in this. Let's just take a moment for a real quick guide of reflection. Just a quick guided reflection. If you just breathe with me. Do this little exercise with me. Now, if you're driving, if you're walking, whatever you're doing, just if you can close your eyes. If you're whatever it is that you're doing, if you just get into that little focus on something. If you're at home, you can close your eyes. If you want, just get an object, the breath perhaps. Now, just take a slow breath. In and a slow breath out. Just do that a few times. In, deep, out. In, out. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of the river. Imagine yourself standing there just watching the river, watching the flow, watching the water, how clear it is, how fresh it looks, how alive it looks. How alive and that it seems like it's this thing that's got life because it's moving. It's moving so clear, so pure, with all the ingredients that it has, all these minerals that you can drink it. It's how pure it is. Now the river is your original nature. That's you. That's how pure you are. If you're feeling depressed today, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling like you want to use, if you're feeling just lost, whatever it is that you're having difficulty with today, imagine that. You're looking at that river and how beautiful it is. That's you right now. In the midst of all those layers of salt, of all that hurt, all that sensation of burning and just uneasiness, underneath all of that, there's a pure river of wholesomeness, of goodness, of you're worthy, of you're worth it, of you can do this, you will do this, you're capable because you are the river. You know, this is your clarity, your compassion, your wisdom, your dignity, your worthiness. Now imagine the river flowing toward the ocean. As it enters the ocean, the water becomes salty. It mixes with everything that it encounters. Now, this is your life. That's your trauma. That's your conditioning. That's your habits. That's your fears. That's your craving. That's your day-to-day living. That's your anxiety. That's your depression. That's your anger. That's your sickness. But notice something important here. Notice that the river didn't disappear. It didn't lose its purities. It didn't become bad. It simply mixed with conditions. And that, understanding that is the introspective awareness thought process. Now imagine yourself walking up the stream, back toward the source, back toward the clarity, back to the fresh water. With every step, the water becomes clear. With every step, the salt fades away. With every step, you remember. You remember who you are. You remember what you carry. You remember your dignity, your worthiness. You remember your capacity for awakening. You start noticing that now you don't have this cap to that capacity. Because you feel so clean, so purified through that consistency of the water coming. And that's the practice. The consistency of you doing something on the daily basis to keep you in that purified state of the flow of that water. That's the mental thought process, staying in that teachable level of thinking. That's the introspective awareness coming to light. That's the phenomena. That's the beginning, just a little bitty seed to enlightenment, to nirvana, to cessation of the suffering. It's all it takes. You know what I mean? Now, there's a couple of ways you can look at this, you know, and here's just 3 simple ways that I'm going to throw at you to use this metaphor every day. When you feel overwhelmed, just say, this is ocean energy. These are conditions, not identity. This breaks the spell. This breaks that. When you start putting those type of thought processes into the things that you say and that you do on the daily basis, it changes you. It changes you because you don't have to revert to, oh man, I'm just going to get another drink. I'm just going to eat one more plate. I'm just going to go spend another $100. Whatever it is that changes that mental thought process of you so that you don't deal with the trauma, with the PTSD, with the addiction, with whatever it is that you're dealing with the grief, with the depression, the anxiety. There's many things. Now, ask yourself, what brings me back to clarity? And this is perfect introspective awareness, man, that doesn't come unless you practice. It doesn't come unless you're doing something on a consistent basis. What brings me back to clarity is maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's just calling somebody. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's breath work. And all of those things, man, I've done. I've done all of those things when I feel that I'm in the ocean of this salt. Because I feel the burning sensation of the wounds that I carry through the things that are happening in my life. I don't have to revert to the go-to and to go use. I now put those types of things into my life. I can meditate right now. I'm feeling some kind of way. All I got to do is just sit there. Right there, right wherever I'm at. I don't even have to sit. If I'm at work, if I'm jogging, if I'm driving, if I'm at the store, wherever I'm at, I can stop in my own ocean and return to the river by simply meditating for a few minutes, by simply saying a prayer if I need to, by simply maybe tuning into something musical, a beautiful note, whatever it is. Maybe hum something. Maybe it's just taking a few minutes to walk. You just walk around the building here, or let me walk down the street and come back. Let me just breathe in this fresh air for a minute and get my introspective awareness back on the track. You know, when shame shows up, remind yourself, the salt is not my fault. The salt is not my identity, and the salt is not permanent. Remember that. Salt is not permanent. You know what I mean? And neither is the purification of returning to the river. You got to also remember that. But the only way to stay in that mindset is by the consistency of the practice. And when I say the consistency of the practice, it's the consistency of the right view, the right thought, the right intention. All of these things that are on my shirt here. The right view, the right thought, the right conditioning, the right effort, the right liveliness, the right action, the right speech. All of those things start with the right view, which starts with the consistency of doing something wholesome. Like all those things that we talked about earlier. Now, you know, as we start getting to the end here, I want you to carry this with you. You know, just remember that you are the river. You have always been the river. Your clarity is not something you earn. It's something you uncover. It's something you return to. It's something you remember. The ocean will always be there. Life will always bring conditions. But the river is deeper than the ocean. The river is older than the ocean. The river is your true nature. And every moment of awareness is a step back toward the clarity. I want to thank you guys for walking this message here of the river with me today. Thank you for your donation, for showing up. Thank you for remembering who you are. You know, this is I love sharing things because by somebody sharing something that changed me. A person shared something one day, stranger, didn't know who he was, and because I heard his story, because I heard him speaking in his Buddha nature, It allowed me to want to seek. It allowed me to want to purify. It allowed me to want to return to the river because I was swimming in an ocean of an ocean that was just burning the wounds that I carried for a long time, and I'm just grateful that someone's river allowed me to look and find my river. And I hope that that's what this does for you today. I hope that something that was said today allows you to seek your rivers, to walk back upstream to the river, your wholesomeness, that thing that you know you have. Because at one point, somewhere along the way of your life, you felt that wholesomeness, that thing that you wanted to be good to you and good to somebody else. So thank you for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. You know, if you'd please just share the channel. That's one thing. That you just go like, go subscribe, share the channel with somebody, because listen, when you share the channel, you'll be helping out another veteran, another homeless person, another person dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experiences, trauma, drug addiction, alcoholism, suicidal thoughts, grief, depression, anxiety. You know, all those types of things, man, because you know what? I dealt with all those things at one point in time in my life and still do with a lot of it. But I'm able to live a life through the right view, through that keen sense of the introspective awareness that allows me to live a life in the river, man. You know what I mean? And I hope that I could bring somebody else to the river of whatever it is that your river is. We all have different rivers, you know what I'm saying? And my river right now is spirituality, recovery, and Buddhism. What your river is could be something different. But so long it's back to that clarity of sense of wholesomeness of you know what I mean? That goodness that you have. And I know you got it, because we all got it. We're all blessed with that in our lives. A lot of us just got to uncover it. Once you uncover it and you see that, when you're gonna be amazed at what life brings you, what the flow of that river brings you, man. Because when you're with the fluidity, oh man, the fluidity, the consistency of that flow of practicing, the consistency flow of every day doing something toward that wholesomeness of you. Every day doing something that allows you to be teachable, to think differently, man. You know what I mean? So thank you again for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful that you did. And so I guess until the next time on When the Smoke Clears, I am the recovery plug. Now let's ring out. Nam